Welcome to the U.S. EPA's fifth Unregulated Contaminant Monitoring Rule training for small public water systems, sample collection for PFAS and lithium analysis. In this training, you will learn everything you need to know to prepare, collect, package, and ship samples for EPA's fifth Unregulated Contaminant Monitoring Rule. Samples would be collected for lithium and PFAS analysis. PFAS stands for per- and polyfluoroalkyl substances, and they are often found in everyday products. The analytical methods used for UCMR 5 can detect PFAS at very low levels, so I'll be going over in detail the exact precautions you'll need to take to minimize the possibility of cross-contamination of samples. You can view this training video in its entirety or jump to the chapters that interest you by clicking on the chapter links in the video summary below. The first thing we'll do is review the contents of the UCMR 5 sampling kit. Open the sampling kit as soon as it arrives. The sampling kit will either be a primary kit or a resampling kit. A primary kit will contain sample bottles for both PFAS methods and lithium, but a resampling kit will contain only sample bottles for the methods that need to be resampled. Resampling most commonly occurs when there is a sampling error or a lab QC failure that requires collection of a new sample. This is a primary sampling kit. Inside the sampling kit, you will find sampling instructions. The person who will be doing the sampling should watch the training video, review the sampling instructions and the list of do's and don'ts for PFAS sampling a day or two before the sample collection if this is their first time sampling for UCMR 5. They can use the contact information provided on the last page of the sampling instructions if they have any questions. A list of do's and don'ts for PFAS sampling. The list of do's and don'ts for PFAS sampling should be reviewed before the day of sampling, and samplers should adhere to them to minimize the possibility of contaminating samples with PFAS. An ink pen and 2 pairs of nitrile gloves. The pen is for dating sample bottles and completing the sample tracking form, and there are 2 pairs of nitrile gloves. The second pair of nitrile gloves are not extra, because a glove change is required for PFAS sampling. A sample tracking form. A sample tracking form, or STF, must be dated with the actual date of sampling, and the sampler should print their name at the bottom of the form. FedEx label and tape strips. The FedEx label is provided so that the samples can be shipped to the EPA contract lab at no cost, and the tape strips are used for packaging and sealing the top of the box. Bottles in bags labeled A through D. A primary kit will have 4 bags of bottles labeled A through D, so the sampler knows to collect the samples in the order of A through D. A resample kit will only have the sample bottles for the samples required in a resample. 4 ice packs. Lastly, ice packs used during shipping of the samples to the lab. Preparing for sampling. The first step is to place the ice packs in the freezer for 72 hours or until frozen solid. Go ahead and put everything back into the sampling kit except for those ice packs. Check the sampling location ID on the sample tracking form to determine if any special tools are needed to access the sample location tab. Prior to monitoring, the sampler should review the sampling instructions and review the list of do's and don'ts for PFAS sampling. Do not risk contaminating your samples with PFAS. PFAS are found in thousands of products we use every day, and contamination could be accidentally introduced into your samples during collection. Follow the precautions listed below to minimize the possibility of contaminating your samples. Do not apply personal care products, sunscreen, or insect repellent prior to sample collection. Do not use anti-fog sprays or wipes prior to collection. Do not handle or use water, oil, or stain-resistant materials prior to sample collection. Those things include Gore-Tex or Tyvek clothing, plastic clipboards, or water-repellent face masks. Remember not to use permanent markers such as Sharpies to label sample bottles. Please don't touch the inside of the cap or bottle. Do not touch the bottle to the faucet. Do not place the lids inside of pockets. Set the bottle lids face up on a clean surface while sampling. Do adhere to the steps contained in the sampling instructions. Please do watch the UCMR 5 training video. If possible, wash your hands before handling sample bottles. Use only the materials provided in the UCMR 5 sampling kit. Scheduling sampling. The recommended sample collection dates are on the sample tracking form. Only sample on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. If for some reason samples are collected on a Thursday or Friday, then the samples must be refrigerated until they can be shipped with a guaranteed overnight arrival at the laboratory. Permission must be obtained if it is ever necessary to ship samples to a lab for a weekend delivery. Call the phone number on the last page of the sampling instructions booklet to get approval. Sample collection. Before samples are collected, make sure the freezer packs are frozen solid. And schedule a FedEx pickup, or be sure to schedule a drop-off for the sampling kit. If this is your first time collecting samples for UCMR 5, review the sampling instructions and the list of do's and don'ts for PFAS sampling. Samples for UCMR 5 must be collected from the entry point to the distribution system. Make sure the sampling location ID at the tap matches the one on the sample tracking form, but do not turn on the tap at this time. First, you must perform field reagent blank transfers for the PFAS methods at the sampling location. The water that you will transfer from one bottle to another is PFAS-free reagent water. Field reagent blanks are analyzed by the lab to determine if PFAS detected in samples may be the result of contamination that occurred during sample collection. The bags labeled A and B contain the field reagent blank bottles. Put on the nitrile gloves just before you remove the bags from the kit. Remove bottles from bag A. Care should be taken to not touch the inside of the bottle or the bottle cap, and do not put the cap in your pocket. Place it open side up on a clean surface. Slowly pour the contents of the full bottle into the empty bottle. Recap the now full bottle and shake it for 15 seconds to dissolve the preservative. Be sure to write the sample collection date on the field reagent blank bottle before putting both bottles back into the bag. Wearing the same pair of gloves, repeat the field reagent blank transfer for bag B. Remove and dispose of used gloves. PFAS samples, bag C. This is a simulation of collecting samples from a tap. Your tap may look a bit different from this one, however. If present, remove any aerator, tubing, or hose and Teflon tape from the sampling location. Open the tap and flush for 2 to 5 minutes. If previously calculated, a shorter period of flushing may be sufficient. The purpose of flushing is to get a sample representative of water entering the distribution system and not water in the line leading to your tap. After the tap is flushed for 2 to 5 minutes, you should reduce the flow to a pencil thickness. The reduced flow will allow you to carefully fill, but not overfill, the bottle. Put on a clean pair of nitrile gloves and remove bag C from the sampling kit. Fill each bottle to at least the shoulder of the bottle. Care should be taken to not touch the inside of the bottle or the bottle cap, and do not put the cap in your pocket. Be careful not to fill beyond where the neck of the bottle begins, because the bottles have preservatives in them, and you don't want to accidentally flush it out by overfilling. Screw the lid on tightly and shake the bottle to dissolve the preservative. When you've filled all the bottles, write the date on them before putting them back into bag C. The PFAS sampling is now complete, and you can collect the samples for lithium analysis. Lithium samples, bag D. Remove bag D from the sampling kit. Uncap each bottle, fill to the shoulder, and recap the bottle. Even though they do not contain preservatives, you still want to be careful not to overfill the bottles. After all the bottles have been filled and capped, write the date on each bottle before putting them back into bag D. Print your name and the sample collection date on the sample tracking form and put the sample tracking form in the Ziploc bag that it came in. Place the pin in the same bag and reattach the plastic bag to the top of the foam lid before closing the box. Packaging and shipping. I'm now going to package and ship the sample kit to the lab. I've sampled this morning and have scheduled a FedEx pickup for this afternoon. If you are not able to ship the kit on the same day as sample collection, then you will need to put the bags with the sample bottles into a refrigerator for shipping the next day or on a day that guarantees overnight delivery to the laboratory. If you do this, be sure to leave the ice packs in the freezer until you are ready to ship, and make sure they are frozen solid before packaging the samples. I've gotten the 4 ice packs out of the freezer and verified that they are frozen solid. I am making sure that the bottles are sitting upright in the cooler. I will put the 2 larger ice packs on each end and the smaller ones on top of the samples. Remove the packing tape and FedEx label from the Ziploc bag. I am placing the completed sample tracking form, the sampling instructions, and the bag with the pin on top of the foam lid. I am then putting the lid on top of the box before I seal the box with the tape strips that are provided. Next is to put the FedEx label on the box. This is a prepaid priority overnight FedEx label to the laboratory, so your utility will not incur any expenses for shipping. Be sure to put the label over any old labeling that may be on the box. So now the sampling kit is ready to be picked up by FedEx, or it can be taken to a FedEx drop-off location near your utility. Thanks for watching this training video, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to the contacts listed on the last page of the sampling instructions. To learn more about EPA's Unregulated Contaminant Monitoring Rule, visit www.epa.gov/DWUCMR.